Now, sustainability, climate change, mindfulness, consumerism, lifestyle, all familiar words in contemporary culture and the subject of much debate about society and ethics. Sunday Sequence this week caught up with an academic whose research focus is sustainability, ethics and climate change. Zack Walsh is a senior researcher at the German think tank, the Institute for Advanced Studies in Sustainability, based in Potsdam. His current research project is entitled A Mindset for the Anthropocene. We're used to big words on Sunday Sequence, but this one definitely needs explanation. I asked Zack Walsh what exactly it means.
The Anthropocene was proposed as a term by Paul Crutzen in the early 2000s, and it's a term that designates a new geological epoch in which humans as a collective species have become a geological force, a force of nature, if you will. And what that means is essentially that humans as a species are collectively influencing planetary systems, Earth systems. And that has never in human history been the case. So it's quite significant in how it redefines the human condition. It makes us consider our impact on the earth. It makes us consider what it means to be human in relationship to other beings. And that's what I'm interested in learning and studying and teaching about, is what does this mean for the human?
So you're studying a mindset.
Correct.
Now that makes me think that you're studying it with a view to changing it.
In a way, it's true. So it's both descriptive and prescriptive. So we're trying to understand how, in the case of the descriptive, human psychology, human spirituality, philosophy, worldviews, what have you, are shaping and shaped by their relationship to the ecology. And then, in the prescriptive sense, what would be a mindset that would be more conducive to leading sustainable lifestyles?
How do you arrive at that mindset?
Very good question. So, of course, there are many ways, but again, this is why I'm interested in particular in philosophy, religion, and in particular practices of self-cultivation. So things like mindfulness meditation, or things like prayer, things like collective-based ritual, earth-based ritual, because I think those practices allow us the capacity to get in touch both with each other in a better way and also the earth.
You seem to be suggesting that if people are more mindful, we can somehow alter climate change.
I say that would be overstepping it a little bit, especially as the way in which mindfulness is currently used. So also
How is it currently used?
Yeah, so some of my research is also investigating the uptake of mindfulness in mainstream society, which is quite an interesting story because, as we know, it's become very popular. But typically the way it's used is also to relieve stress and to focus on enhancing performance. And what it's not usually doing is questioning the social environment and also considering the environment as such, the ecology in which we're embedded. So I'm interested in extending the practice in those ways, but I recognize that typically people practicing mindfulness are focusing on the breath and to relieve their stress.
And on the individual.
Exactly. So it's really not getting to social, political change that would be required for sustainability. So mindfulness, as it's currently practiced, I don't particularly have high hopes for. But I think the practices that religions and philosophies offer could be adapted in those contexts.
How?
So I think it requires mining the traditions because there are such rich resources going back centuries and millennia which we can learn from. And so, for instance, some Christian traditions, because I know a lot of your listeners are Christians, might be inspired by feminist theologians and nuns who were really in touch with nature, who practiced sort of a nature-based spirituality and who were healers also and interested in those things.
Only women?
Oh, no, certainly not. It's not also men and women in that way, but it does take a sort of feminine touch, I think, to sort of understand the care and compassion that it takes to really appreciate the relationship to nature.
Where does Pope Francis's encyclical about caring for the earth fit into all of this, if at all?
Oh, certainly. Good question. So he recently came out with the encyclical to discuss how also social and ecological justice were connected. And that was really important, especially for the Christian tradition, because it hadn't been done at that level before. And I think that what he was talking about was both that if we're going to make progress in climate change and these ecological issues, we also have to address poverty. And we also have to address other social issues as a concerted effort.
How do you do that?
Well, there are many different ways, of course, and there's no one solution. So it takes, and it's not just religion, right? It takes policy, it takes communities, it takes organizing, it takes education. So it's really requiring everybody to pull together to a sort of common agenda. And so also with the term of mindset for the Anthropocene, as you asked before, I'm trying to understand how these things are related and integrated in a way that everybody can sort of tap in where they're most useful and effective.
Now, it's the interaction with politics here that interests me, because here in Ireland we've just had, if you like, the tale of two presidents. One, the President of Ireland, President Higgins, who is very vocal about the dangers of climate change and so on, and President Trump, who is in Ireland at the moment, or has been in Ireland, who is, has lots of questions climate change, put it that way.
Right.
So, there's such a clash of opinion on this that I'm wondering, how does mindfulness, spirituality and so on break through all of that?
Good question. So it's really a sort of, you said, a clash, and a clash of civilizations, to put it in the broadest of terms, because some people like Trump, for instance, are really indebted to the old system, the old way of thinking, the old ways of doing things. We have to, I think, take people where they are and try to push the needle a little bit. So my hardest work would be dealing with people who, some of which are my family and friends, support Trump, but who I would have to speak in a different language, for instance, about green energy or jobs, ways in which they could connect to the issue of climate change that would allow them to take part.
Zack Walsh from the Institute of Advanced Studies in Sustainability in Potsdam.